Are you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
Okay, this is William Tingle with Sub2Deals.com, and I am happy to have my good friend Gerald Paul from Dallas, Texas, here with me tonight. Gerald has been an investor for quite some time. He's done it the hard way and is doing it the easy way now. So we're going to talk to us about that tonight. Owner financing. And so, Gerald, good evening and welcome.
Well, good evening to you. Don't give me too strong
William, we can't hear you.
Introduction. I'm not a high roller real estate mogul or anything like that. I'm just a small-time investor.
Hey, William.
Who's figured out a few things about how to make money in real estate without working too hard, and so that's what I've consented to pass on to you tonight.
Well, great.
So where would you like to start, William?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know the experience ranges of all the callers that we've got on here tonight, the folks on the webcast or the call, so why don't we just start out, kind of simple. Let's talk just a little bit about what owner financing is when we talk about
it. Okay, well, do you want me to start with my story?
That'll be just fine. Tell us how you got started.
Okay, and I think that'll lead up into that. Okay, how did I get started? Well, you've heard me say that I've been at it like less than 7 years.
That's right.
That's not exactly correct. I actually jumped in around 20 years ago, and I wasn't much of a success at it. I'd read a few books, and I'd seen a few commercials, and it looked like a easy way to financial success. So I went out and I bought a few properties, and I became a real estate investor. Now, the only thing I understood at that time was that you buy them, you fix them up, and you rent them out. And they'd pay for themselves, and then time would take care of everything, and they'd be sitting pretty. Well, that's not exactly how things worked out, because I learned several things from the experience. First of all, do you know there's folks out there that can tear them up as fast as you can fix them up?
You're kidding.
The second thing I learned is that landlording sucks. My psyche is just not geared to handle the frustrations of being a landlord. Other people fine. But a couple of other things is I learned that because your local real estate market is appreciating, it doesn't mean that your rental properties are going to appreciate. I hung on to these properties through a recovery, and while the properties in a nice subdivision, they went up, my rentals didn't go up. And the fourth thing, I learned that it's difficult to retail a home that is in the middle of mostly renters. No, the people who can qualify for a loan, they aren't going to buy in a rental area. They're going to go out to a neighborhood of mostly homeowners. So the only market for your property for these rentals are the landlords. And is a landlord going to pay retail? No. They're investors too. So whereas that if you buy these rentals in a rental area, you can buy at a bargain, but you'll have to sell at a bargain to unload them. So this was why one of the reasons I was just not making any money at it. So after a few years, I told the wife, hey, this is not worth the hassle. I'm getting rid of all these headaches, and so that's the way that I left the first time. So I call that phase one of my real estate career. I didn't make much money, but the good thing is I did pick up a lot of knowledge and experience in real estate. Okay. So after a few years, let's fast forward another dozen years, and I'm going to call this phase two. Okay. Now I'm 60 years old. I told you I was an old guy. But I'm coming up on retirement age, and I really haven't socked away the funds that I should have for a nice retirement. I could retire, but it would have been somewhat bleak compared to the type of retirement that we enjoy right now. So my first thoughts were, I know a little about real estate. Maybe I could supplement my income. So I started studying, thinking, devising a plan. And, of course, nice having the knowledge and experience that I got in phase one, because I knew what didn't work efficiently and what not to do. So I jumped in this time, and it wasn't long before I upped my sights, is that I no longer wanted to just supplement my income. I was looking at bigger and better things when I realized what I had was so efficient. And so I set a lofty goal. I upped my goal, you know, the one with all those zeros in it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, it took me a little over 6 years to reach that goal while working at it, probably an average of less than 5 hours a week. I never worked hard at it. I was never in a position where I had to succeed. I just thought of it as a part-time hobby, a lucrative hobby. So at the beginning of this year, I told the wife, well, we got enough. We've reached our goal. No point in accumulating any more. I bought my last property, and I'm going to be officially retired from real estate. Then things went that way for a few months, and I had a serious medical problem. You know about that.
Right.
And so I'm sitting around too much in recovery, and the wife said, hey, you got to get out of the house and play with your real estate hobby. You ain't golfing. So I'm still doing a few deals, but it's mostly now I'm not aggressive at it, do something for the family, kids, charities, things like that.
So you've cut back significantly from that big 5 hours a week you were working?
Oh, yeah. It's probably less than 2 hours now.
Oh.
So, well, that's where we are right now. We're enjoying life. We're doing a good bit of traveling, and that's about it.
I know you like to travel like I do. You're getting ready to leave in a few days for Hawaii, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I am. Aloha.
That's what I like to hear.
Uh-huh.
So you went from being a landlord to this new thing, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I know a lot of people out there are interested in this because, you know, with the market being like it is now, it's a little bit difficult to move properties that you're wanting to retail. But I know you and I both do something that will not only let us move these properties quickly, but they'll also let us make an incredible amount of money, even more so than we would if we were retailing.
Yeah. What I do is I kind of look at it with owner financing. In my mind, I kind of categorize them into two piles. Some people use it to stop the bleeding, is what I call it, and other people use it to make a fortune. What I mean by stopping the bleeding is that there's a lot of investors out there that are having trouble moving their property, and the payments are just killing them because it's such a slow market, and they realize that this is the way out. So probably the way that most people do it, and they think of owner financing as just an exit strategy, how I can unload my property. And, of course, there's several reasons for doing this. Not only are you able to unload it, but whenever you sell it, instead of having to discount the property and sell it off cheap, if you're owner financing, you can get full price for your property. Plus, you got no closing cost. Plus, you got a cash flow while your deal is maturing, and there's some other side things to it. So, this is the way of doing it. I don't know. Am I leaving something out here?
No. I mean that's really the basics of what we do. What I like to use it in combination with, of course, buying subject to and wrapping the note. But I know you've got a little bit a different process that you use. I mean, you have really developed a niche in the owner finance market.
Well, what most people, if you don't understand this here, you want to refinance, or rather, you want to hold on to the properties and give your people a chance to clean up their credit. And whenever they do, they'll refinance, and the bulk of the profit is going to come on the back end. I look at, there's three profit centers in this. There's your front-end money. What you get is the down payment. The middle profit center is your cash flow. But the big one is that back end, the third, that's where the big money is in that the cash out. Whenever they cash you out, they refinance, and that's where you get your big check.
Right. So I know when you and I have talked on occasion, you've told me, and I know you wrote a couple of articles for us. It's for sub2deals.com explaining your process. But what we really want to get to tonight is, how that works exactly. I mean, how you've refined it to the point to where you have buyers that actually come in. I know most of us that do some form of owner financing, whether it's lease options or even, wrapping a note or things like that, we don't see the kind of percentages of people that actually cash us out that you've been able to achieve, which you've told me it's 90%, I think.
No, not quite that much, but it's between 75 and 80%.
Okay, 80%. I mean, I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
And you've really worked on this and refined it, and that's where we want to go with this. So tell us, Gerald, how does that work?
Well, basically what I do is that I don't just buy a property and say, well, I think I'm going to unload it and owner finance anything. What I do is that I pick out the property. I kind of stack the dice before I ever jump into the deal. What I do is I'm looking for a specific type of property, a specific market, a specific neighborhood, a specific price range, and I want to market this to a specific type of buyer. So everything is pre-planned. I go out shopping for a property rather than just say, I have a property and I want to owner finance. That might be a good way to get out of it. I'm looking at the profitability of it. So I want the property that is the best vehicle to make me the money. And so by doing that, that's how I got nearly a 80% cash out rate, stacking the deck. And how I do that, that's why I wrote that kind of mini book in those long articles in your article section. And
right.
I think that anybody that is planning on doing owner finance really ought to read those things.
Right.
Because there's a lot of the things that I've learned, and I haven't seen that written anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're looking for a specific property in specific neighborhoods, specific price ranges. I mean, do you base this on median price ranges in your market or just certain neighborhoods?
Well, there's a certain place, I think you called it a sweet spot,
right,
that I seem to have the best results in. And in my area, I live in a real good, moderate price range. We didn't go through all this bubble inflation like everybody else. I think you're in the same type of market in your area. And I can buy a late model starter home, maybe 1,700 to 1,800 square feet, somewhere between 130, 150. Probably an ideal range, 130, 140 is what the type of property that I look for, because I know that this is what's going to move the fastest.
Now, is that the fair market value of the property?
Yes, that's what I'm looking at, is what it will retail for.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is if I have a $140,000 home that's only a couple or 3 years old, and I can buy it for around, say, 75% of that, or for the $140,000 property, I'll pay $105,000. That's a decent on a property that doesn't need much or any repairs, and that's what I kind of look for, is about 75% of that. So that gives me the type of spread between 140 and 105. That's $35,000, and that's really the type of deal that I'm looking at.
Oh, okay. So are you getting most of your deals these days through the MLS? Or?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't use any of the MLS. The way that I get my deals, probably do three things. Still do some sub-twos. I love that sub-two. I wish they were all available. Of course, I think you'd be in agreement. And so, but lately I haven't. It's hard to find one that has most of the things that don't have the equity the way that they used to. But that cost wanting to pop up. But what I have found is that there's people who are going to have some equity to make the deal possible. And some of the new investors who are putting up these bandit signs and making contacts with these people, they don't have the funds to do that. And so they often call me, and I'll take over the deal if there's enough equity in it.
Right.
Boom, boy.
Okay.
I told you I was going to try to make it through this thing without the cough doing it. Okay, second place that I get my deal is I've been doing a lot of stuff with the HUD properties. HUD is a kind of a funny thing, being exposed to everybody, and it's easy to find. Just go to the website and see what you're doing. If you understand the parameters of what you can do, what the minimum that HUD will take in a specific time on a specific property, it'll be there's a lot of dealing, but sometimes you can find one that really slips through the cracks. If you just say as an overall thing, do you get good deals with HUD? I'd say no, but you can find a lot of good ones that will slip through the cracks, and you can pick up a good buy there. And of course, the other things is that I buy REOs, and I used to try to shortcut and go directly through the banks, but right now you get good deals even if you go through a realtor. Well, through the MLS, you can find them there. So
I know.
I guess I do use the MLS.
I tell you, I think I was telling you yesterday when we spoke that I got bored a couple of months ago and made about 20 offers through the MLS, and actually got 3 or 4 of them accepted. So, I was shocked at how motivated the banks already are to move some of these houses.
Yeah, it's easier to find a deal, and particularly, you got proof of funds that you can close, and and you got a bunch of snags and everything, and say, hey, I can do it now. You can find a pretty good deal.
Okay, so you find these things, HUD, or let's say you do a HUD or an REO, and you get an offer accepted at 75 cents on the dollar. So how are you funding these?
Well, it depends on what stage of mine is, and I'll explain this when I get into my strategy. On most of them, what I do or have done here lately is that if you have one property paid for free and clear, then what you can do is buy the property and immediately put a loan on your free and clear property, which will give you cash to go out and pay cash for that new property. Am I losing you?
No, I got you.
Okay. And so, in other words, because you're paying cash for that new property, you're getting a loan on the old property, and it becomes your free and clear. But anyway, that's the way that I've done most of the things there.
Right. Okay. So that's how you're acquiring them. Okay. Well, you want to go into your strategy?
Okay, let's get into that.
Okay.
I'm going to explain how I pay off the properties in around 6 years and my whole strategy, and I'm going to show you some things that you won't find in any real estate book or any guru's course. And so what I lead up to this, when I was entering real estate the second time, my phase 2, I needed to come up with a plan of attack that was a lot more efficient than what I'd done in the past. So I came across something very interesting that got me to thinking. It was a strategy how homeowners could own a home with no mortgage in just 6 or 7 years. Now, most of you probably heard of this. what you do is you buy a home at a discount, then you improve it or increase the value, and then after 2 years, you sell it and buy another home. And so if you owned a home for 2 years or more, then the profits are tax-free. You've probably heard that, and most people out there probably heard this too. But anyway, it's real interesting. And then you take that and you invest the properties in the down payment of the new home, and you repeat the process every couple of years, and tax-free, about the third or fourth time you do this, you can own a home free and clear with no mortgage. You think most of the audience have heard of this one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my thinking was, why couldn't you do a similar strategy with an investment property? Well, the roadblock is that it's the tax break for residences, not investment property. So if you were paying the taxes each time you turned it over, it'd be a drain on so much of the profits. So I thought, what if there was some way that we could overcome this problem of the taxes? And it hit me. There is. In fact, there's a couple of ways. One of the ways is to use a 1031 exchange. Now, if you're doing this, it takes a little hoop jumping with the rules, and it can be structured to eliminate, not to eliminate, but it will defer the taxes so that you can keep all your money going. And your money can keep growing without the tax deduction. So, and also it requires a little creative to structure the deal to where that you can qualify for the 1031. But anyway, this same thing that the homeowner is going to own his property without a mortgage, this became the basis of my own business model. So to understand the effectiveness of what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain it, and maybe it'll come into focus. I'll explain it here on the board, emails. Sometimes when I do this, it goes over people's head, but whenever I can show it to people, with pen and paper, a chalkboard, or something other like this, people can understand it better. So this is a problem in explaining it. So in order to get the listeners out there to get in on this understanding, what I'd like to ask them to do right now is to get a pencil and paper and write the numbers down, and I think that the impact will hit you a lot more.
Okay.
And so, anyway, what I'd like to do in my example here, to make it easy, let's do a little role playing, okay? In fact, humor me. I want you to be the typical landlord, the buy and hold guy.
Okay.
Or, for that matter, a person who's owner financing, not getting any cash out, because you're really not much better than that guy who's a landlord. You get less headaches, but financially there's not much difference because all you get is cash flow. So you're the landlord, and I'm going to use my methods, and we're going to compare them as we go along. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's start off with each of us buying similar properties with a retail value of $100,000, but we both buy at a discount, and we both pay $75,000 for them with little or no money down. So we're even at the starting gate.
Yep.
Both of us owe $75,000 on our $100,000 homes. Now, you're going to be a landlord with yours and rent it out, and let's say you're doing great and you're getting a $200 a month cash flow. So at the end of 24 months, you have pocketed a total of nearly $5,000. Okay, write that down. But meanwhile, I financed mine on a 2-year balloon, and I also got $200 a month cash flow, or almost $5,000. But in addition, my buyers cashed me out, and I have an extra $25,000 on the profit on the deal. Okay, let's compare things. So at this point, you, the landlord, have got $5,000 in your pocket, but I have nearly $30,000 in my pocket. So at this point, how much more profitable is owner financing than landlording? I ask all of the viewers. 30,000 versus 5,000. Can we say that it's 6 times as profitable using owner financing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks good to me.
There again, I've sold my house. I no longer have a house. So to be comparable, I need to go out and get myself another house just like it, a replacement home on the same price. Okay, I got a house now. You got a house. We're back even. We got a similar investment property. But one thing I did is different. Instead of going out and spending that $25,000 back-end profit on my house, I'm going to use it as a down payment on my replacement home. So I'm going to buy another $100,000 home for $75,000, but I'm going to put $25,000 on it, so I only owe $50,000 on my $100,000 property. So after 2 years, it's already half paid for. Whereas, meanwhile, you've only barely whittled on your principal. So let's go another 24 months. I'm right back in step with you. I start my phase 2. We each got an investment house. You're getting your $200 cash flow. But guess what? Because I put $25,000 down on my home, I'm not getting $200 a month. I'm getting about $400 a month cash flow. So after 2 years, I have twice as much equity as you do, plus I'm getting twice the cash flow that you are. And this is just 2 years, and we're just getting started. Wait, it gets better than this. As we carried out years 2 through 4, I'm getting, you're getting $5,000 in cash flow, but I'm getting $10,000 in cash flow. Plus, at the end of this 2-year period, I'm going to get another $25,000 profit. Follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so at this point, I got, at the closing of mine, I got an additional $35,000 in my hand, whereas you got an extra $5,000 in your hand from the cash flow. So now, during this phase of it, how much more profitable is owner financing than landlording?
Well, it snowballs.
Yeah, you got $5,000 for this period of time. I got $35,000. So can we say that owner financing would be 7 times as profitable as landlording?
At least.
And and what am I going to do with that $25,000 profit?
Well, I bet you're going to put it into another property.
And the original, you got it. And it goes down into the down payment and my next property. Okay. So at this point, after 4 years, I have $75,000 equity in my property. It's 3/4 paid for, and this is only after 4 years. When I repeat this for years 4 and 6, cash flow jumps up another $200 a month. Now I'm making $600 a month cash flow. I'm making $40,000 off of this. This time it's 8 times as profitable as landlording. And at the end of this time, the end of the 6 years, my home will be paid for free and clear. Meanwhile, where's you, the landlord? You just right out of the starting gate. You've whittled a little off your amortization schedule, and that's about it.
Yep.
So I think this can maybe turn on a few light bulbs to people out there that are listening. But I'm not through. It gets better than this. You see, in our example, for simplicity's sake, I had each of us buying $100,000 homes so we could compare apples to apples. In real life, my average home purchase price is $140,000, not $100,000, but $140,000. And the typical investor buying rental property in my area, he shops for the blue-collar property, and he's buying the $60,000 house. So the results after that 6 years is that I own a $140,000 home free and clear, while the landlord, buy and hold guy, or the guy who's not getting any cash outs, he's what? Got a little cash flow and maybe paid down $5,000 on the principal on his note.
Right.
So that is the basis of my whole strategy. Now, does it work out this way exactly? This is the model. You know, you got people cashing you out at different times. Some of the people don't cash you out. You got different properties going, you know, all this sort of stuff. But if you understand the model of how to do it, I've just explained to you the strategy right there in a nutshell.
Right. And what's so great about this is that you know, when you're talking about a house, you know, $140,000 house, which is really low for a lot of markets out there. But
oh, yeah.
when you're talking about a house of that price, just the monthly income when you do these, when you've got these things paid off free and clear, and we talked about this earlier, you don't need many of these houses at all.
That's right. I hear all these people, you got to have 60,000, 70,000 houses. No, during the whole time, even when I was buying, I never had over 10 or 12 properties in my inventory going.
And well, I wish I could say that, but that's not true. But I didn't know about your strategy when I got started.
I only have to work about 5 hours a week.
Well, I try not to work too much more than that now.
Yeah, I think you got things figured out for efficiency too.
But I think we'll make it okay. But that's just a great strategy to use. And I know a lot of people. I know when we talk about this on the board, they were really interested in just your cookie cutter, and that's all you do. I mean, you're not interested in the low end stuff and all that sort of thing. You just go out there, buy these nice homes that are. Aren't you typically buying 5 years or less in age?
That's right. And I might extend to 8 or 9, but mostly it's less than 5.
Right. So
okay. Well, let me point out something other. Let's analyze why there's so much difference that people never stop and think about this. Why there's so much difference between the buy and hold strategy and my technique of doing things. See, I'm getting about as much, about 7 times the profit as a landlord is getting. And how many landlords out there have ever thought of this? Very few. The reason I did that, in the buy and hold strategy, we both got equity when we bought our property. You did, I did. But here's the difference that most people have never stopped and thought about. If you're the landlord and you got some equity at the beginning of it, your equity was sitting there dead. It wasn't doing you anything outside of just providing you a little cash flow. It was completely static. But what I was doing, I was recycling my equity, and it was growing and snowballed. My equity was dynamic, whereas yours was dead.
Right.
In other words, I was making my equity work instead of just sitting there. And that is the key to making money relatively quickly, I think.
Yeah,
that is the key. In fact, you want me to repeat that for our viewers out there?
Please do.
The key to achieving wealth quickly is in keeping your equity working instead of lying there dead. Okay, you got to copy that. This is something that you never read in a book or course, so you can call it Gerald's Law.
Well, Gerald's Law works pretty well.
Or whatever. And it's just amazing to me. If I thought a lot of people would have connected the dots, but I've seen a lot of many well-read, long-time investors who have never even thought of this. I know an investor who's been doing the buy and hold thing with junkers for over 25 years. He lives in a dump and he drives a heap, but he's convinced that one of these days that he's going to be set for life. Is this where we ought to be after 25 years?
What? Oh, man, that's depressing.
I mean, if he had applied the principles to his rental that I just discussed, he could have been living a life of luxury 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But, some of these times when I talk to landlords, they get completely it's like, I don't want to hear that. But they say, well, you're going to pay off 30 years. The 30-year plan, buy it, pay the 30-year plan. That's what I call the nursing home strategy.
The nursing home.
It works, but you'll receive your reward just in time to help pay your nursing home bills. Okay. So,
all right.
Now,
so
let me add something else to this, because it sounds like I'm totally against rentals, and that's not true. There's really a place for buy and hold, and what we want to do for our long-term strategy, because that's where your true wealth is going to lie. You want to have properties that you keep for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't start off and buy them with a 30-year mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
What you want to keep are properties, but what you want to do is use some sort of technique like I just explained mine, where that you get them paid off early in the game. Then once they're paid off, then you can rent them out forever, get yourself a big cash flow, and do what you want. Or on the other hand, you can just refinance them without a balloon and say, hey, I'll just carry the mortgage for you for the next 30 years. Either way, but the thing about it is that you can achieve wealth so much quickly, so much more quickly. And actually, they will go up in value. Our whole economic system is based on our dollars losing about 90% of their value in about 40 years, and I can say that I'm old enough to have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way our politicians send money that they don't have, make wars on credit, you know, that sort of stuff, is that we're going to see some inflation in years to come, and you'll want to have properties that are paid off and be in a much more profitable situation instead of waiting years down to pay them off.
Right.
So, does that make sense?
It does. Makes a lot of sense.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So for the folks out there who are listening now, how do you get these deals? I know you told us briefly, you know, how the three primary ways that you do it, but how do you get these things, and then how do you structure, you know, how you sell with owner financing?
Well, okay. Say I go out and I buy a REO HUD home. I got it out there at I bought it, say, for $75,000. I bought that $140,000 property for $105,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I do is, again, I look at the three profit centers: the front end, middle end, and the back end. I really don't count on making much off of the front end. What I do is I kind of look at it is that just kind of pays the holding cost or the acquisition cost of getting in there. If I get $5,000 down from them, it's probably cost me $5,000 to go in and spruce it up and pay a month or two payments, or pay their back payments or something until that they can. So,
how are you doing the marketing for this stuff? I mean, how do you sell this?
Oh, this is the funny thing about it. And let me explain this about it. And this has to do with the way that I don't have to work that hard at it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I said, I only buy one house about every 2 months. Or when I was working, that's about all I did. That's all. And so what I do is I buy the house, get financing, close it on it, and sell it, all within a 2-month period. Then I put it to bed and go out and get me another one. And it's just kind of like a farmer, planting continuously, harvesting continuously, but the harvest comes in a couple of years down the road. So I don't spend that much time on each deal. I maybe only spend 25 or 30 hours total. 5 to get it financed, maybe 15 hours for me and my handyman to spruce it up, maybe another 10 hours to market, and sell it, because I'm only buying properties that are like less than 5 years old.
Right.
A little spot painting, carpet cleaning, a few minor repairs. I don't want any older or trashed out places because it uses up too much time. Mm-hmm. So if I'm putting in, say, 30 hours over a 2-month period, how much does this average out to per week? Let's see, 30 hours over 8 weeks. Hey, that's less than 4 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, you know, this is why I'm amazed at how many real estate investors were going gaga when that book, The 4-Hour Work Week, came out.
He's working an extra hour, isn't he?
Yeah. Somebody says, I bought 30 copies for my friends, and everybody's all excited, and I looked at it and said, well, heck, I'm working less than that right now.
You need to write a book, Gerald.
I think this kind of shows how many people in real estate invested or sucked into time-consuming methods, and when they think that's what real estate investing is all about. And you hear, oh, real estate investing, it's hard work. And baloney. And real estate doesn't have to be hard work if you'll substitute a little creative thought for your labor.
So what do you do to move these houses? I mean, do you run an ad in the paper?
That's all I do. As a matter of fact, owner finance is the people are you're going to be your buyers are the people who, have blemished credit.
Right.
And so they're not going to be as particular. And not only that, but there may be a dozen houses on the same street, but mine is the only one where I'm offering owner financing. So they pass by the sign and, I wish we could buy a home, honey. We probably can't. Hey, here's something other that says that no qualifying. Mm-hmm. Let's get here. Let's call this guy up. And so that's the reason your house will sell fast. And so I used to run a lot of ads in the paper. Most of the time right now, all I'm doing is putting up my sign, and I may put it on Craigslist, but that's about it. And I have real informative flyers stuck out there, and that's the way I'm selling them.
Right. And then your average time on the market right now is a couple of months?
It varies. So much with, I don't know. I've sold houses that the first day on the market, and I've had others that it's taken 4 months to.
Right.
And so I guess there's an average, maybe a month, maybe 3 or 4 weeks somewhere in there. Maybe longer than that. The thing about it, I'm so selective as to who I put in there.
Right.
There's a lot of people I could go ahead and put in there that just to, if I wanted to stop the bleeding, and I think there's a lot of people who use the stop the bleeding. Oh, all I want to do is owner financing so I can get out from under these payments. I think that a lot of times they put people in there who really shouldn't be there. So I'm really selective of people.
Right. What are your qualifying criteria once you get someone?
Well, I look at, first of all, the biggest thing is they got to have the income to make the payments, not just make them, but I want them to be able to make them comfortably.
Right.
And then I'm going to run a little credit check on them, and they already know, and I know, that they can't go qualify for a loan. So what I'm looking at mostly is this a person who is just right below the bar? Is there some reason, or is this a person who is it really a good bill payer, pays his bills good, but just went through a particular hardship or something other that he can be corrected? I don't want a chronic deadbeat in there, and so I'm really selective for that. And if I see a person who I know that I can raise his FICO about 50 points in the next 2 years, and I've got him convinced and I'm comfortable with him, that's who I'm looking to sell to.
Mm-hmm. And what are you typically seeing as far as a down payment amount that you're able to get?
I normally ask $5,000, sometimes $4 on maybe $120,000, but I'm looking for $5.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be kind of the magic number.
Right.
With me. Now, I've had people go, hey, is there any way that I could pay that off and make the down payment in several payments, like pay so much per month? I said, no, I got to have all that up front, because if a person is living so tight that he can't come up with $5,000, is that I don't think he ought to be buying a house.
Yeah. If something goes wrong, they don't have the money to fix it.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you something else that should be a flag for anyone. When you've got a house you're selling, and let's say their mortgage payment to you would be $1,000, and one of your qualifying questions really needs to be, what are you paying right now? Because when you hear, well, we're paying $500 a month now, and they're going to go to paying $1,000 a month, that can be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure could. And so that's the type of things that you look for. Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, you want to take a few questions?
Well, let me talk a little bit more about this. I was on this thing about why you don't need to work that hard at it.
Okay.
I was thinking about something happened not too long ago. I had a young investor approach me with this offer. He says, hey, if you'll let me ride with you every day this next week and be an observer, I'll pay for all your gas. And I had to laugh and explain it. I didn't go out last month. Probably won't go out this month. And he said, but aren't you knocking on doors and working on advertising and putting out bandit signs? And no, I don't do any of that. But writing up dozens of offers, making up short sale packages? No, don't do any of that. I said, well, what do you do? I told him, well, I just keep it simple. All I do is I go out and I buy a house, I spruce it up, I sell it with owner financing. A couple of months later, I go out and I get me another one. It's basically as simple as that. That's all it is. But yeah, he says, but I've been going to all these courses and I've gone to all these seminars and they tell me that real estate investing is hard work. And I say, well, yeah, it can be hard work. If you do all the things the gurus tell you, the ones who told you those courses tell you to do, yeah, it can be hard work. You ever stopped and wondered, does it sometimes seem like the gurus make it seem harder than necessary? Well, it's either the gurus are not creative thinking or they really want you dependent on them. You'll have to buy them. So, anyway, let's get off of this. Let me throw out another thought here. In the profitability of this owner financing is that right now I average around $35,000 a deal.
Mm-hmm. And
so I'm spending, probably 25 to 35 hours on that deal. So how much per hour does that come out to?
Well, sounds better than $1,000 an hour to me.
It could be $1,000 an hour if you go into that. And a lot of people, just don't take the factor of time into consideration. And, there's a lot of rehabbers out there who are making less than $50 an hour, and they think they're doing great. So, well, somebody's going to say, well, if you're making that much per hour, why don't you just work straight through for about 50 hours a week for about 6 months and just really retire? Of course, the problem with that is that the availability of the suitable deals is what limits you.
Right.
Sometimes you've got to wait several weeks for the right deal to pop up. And
I think the availability is going to be a lot better soon.
But by the same token, think about this. I say I only do a deal every couple of months.
Right.
And if you're not doing but 6 deals a year, and each deal is $35,000 a pop, how many cash outs do you have to make a 6-figure income?
Oh, I know. It doesn't take many, does it?
No, it doesn't. If you're getting 75% of something other, it doesn't take that many. But what if you're not doing it? Say you're not as proficient as I am in getting the cash out, and say only 3 of your deals are cashed out per year. You only got a 50% rate. So how would you do? That'd be 3 times 35.
Well, you'd still make a six-figure income.
That's what I'm saying. You can make that type of income working less than 5 hours a week. And I've said this many times on the board, and people roll their eyes and say, "Oh yeah," but I think with this example, you can see that's really not that far-fetched.
Yep.
Huh.
I agree. Well, that's how you and I get to travel months and months.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to get ground down with all that hard work.
Yeah, that's what people ask me. How do you leave for 2 months? That's what they ask me. How do you leave for 2 months? How do you handle things? Who manages your properties? And I said, nobody manages the properties. The people who are buying them manage it.
It's so much easier when they're owner finance and you got people in there who really think that they're buying a house, and they feel that way, and they feel the pride of ownership as opposed to some renter who's living paycheck to paycheck and figuring out some way to screw you out of next month's rent.
That's right. I mean, people ask me, well, what do you do when something goes wrong with one of the houses? I said, well, gee, when something happens at my house, I don't call Countrywide. They don't care. They just want their payment.
That's right.
So
they call me up and say, hey, I got a problem with my air conditioner. I say, yeah, you sure do have a problem with your air conditioner. And
that's right.
Make it very clear. Remember, this is what we agreed upon. Well, I just want to see if there's anything that you do. Hey, it's your house.
That's right. Well, what do we miss, Gerald?
Well, about the only thing I can think about is I see a lot of people saying, I want to quit my job and go full-time into real estate. And because I work so few hours at it, I always discourage this. And a lot of people, are thinking, well, the only way you can do it takes so much hard work, and I want to go full-time. And I think one of the things that contributed to my own success was that the way I kept plowing my profits back in and snowballing them up was that I had other income to where that I didn't have to live off of my real estate income. In other words, I didn't have to take any money out of it. As a matter of fact, I didn't take any money out the first 4 years. I just kept plowing everything back and plowing everything back. Things can snowball pretty fast whenever you're doing that.
Right.
But if you're having to make a living and take the money out to live on, you're making real estate income, and, if you're paying, like, say, 20% in taxes, and plus you got to pay FICA of the self-employed, that's about 15%. You're 35% right there. And then if that's off of $100,000, and then you got $50,000 or $60,000 to live on, that doesn't leave you anything for that long-term financial build-up. Whereas if you got an extra income like I did, where you hadn't got to tap that off, things can snowball pretty fast because all of your money is working for you. So what I have done with everything I have here, there's a lot of people who say, I don't have enough time. My wife and I are both working long hours, and I just don't have the time to do real estate. I loved it, and I've read this and gone to all the seminars. Hey, what I've shown you here is something that is for people who don't have the time, because you can become quite successful with very little time.
Right.
So that was, I guess, about the last thing that I wanted to cover. Time for question and answer, you say?
Yeah, we've got some questions here.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll give you the questions, and we can kind of compare notes on what we would do on these things. This first one, you're really going to like it. It's from Christy, and she wants to know what are the pros and cons of lease option versus owner finance.
Okay.
And I know that you love lease options, don't you?
Well, the only thing about it, whenever you got a lease option, what you're doing is saying, I'll rent the property and I'll give you an option to buy it. lease options, what you attract is a renter, and you're going to give him an option. And the person who is entering that lease option, you don't get near the cash out rate that you do with owner financing. Whereas owner financing, you can get a high rate of cash out if you impose on them that they're actually buying the house, that they've got this pride of ownership and all this sort of stuff. So by all means, if it's practical, advertise it as owner finance. Now, whether you actually structure the deal and where you make all the contracts as to being a lease option or how you structure it, sometimes if you live in one of those states where it takes forever to get you out with a judicial foreclosure and it's hard to structure, you may be forced into doing nothing but lease options, and that's fine too. But if you have a choice, let me say, always go with the owner finance. Does that kind of help you?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I mean, we do offer lease options, but we market all of our properties as owner finance properties, and what we do is we're looking for a down payment amount. Now, if I want $4,000 down for this house that I've got, and a potential buyer comes up and they look like great buyers, but they only have $2,000 to put down, I've got to make a choice. I'm going to give up my rights of ownership and the benefits of ownership for only $2,000 down, or I'm going to put them in on a lease option. And a lot of times we'll do that. We'll put them in on a lease option. We get to keep the benefits of ownership, depreciation, and those things.
Yeah. And that's worth a lot. And the other thing is that I didn't mention, in most states, it's so much easier to evict somebody that's under a lease option as opposed to actually foreclosing on them. Now, I've got my deal structured and everything, and Texas has got the fastest foreclosure in the nation, so that's really not a big thing to me, but in some states this makes a heck of a lot of difference. Yeah, and we're very similar here in Georgia. We're very landlord-friendly, and we can also evict in a owner finance situation on land contracts, which is which is what I do here. So, but yeah, that's just your cash outs they're actually going to flip flop. I've always said I'll get 20% cash out on lease option, 80% on owner finance, and I believe that's pretty much the case, wouldn't you say? That's about it. About it. The next question here is also from Christy, and she's asked us to take a step by step through the owner financing process. Say I have a traditional mortgage on a property and want to sell it to someone else. What legal paperwork do I have to do? Who has the deed? Does the bank care? And that sort of thing. Well, I can get long and drawn out on this, but I'm going to give you the short version of it, is that what you do is that if you're owner financing it, it's none of the concern of the banks who's holding your mortgage. All you have to do is write up a contract. And if you can do it simple, like if in your state, William, where that you can do a contract for deed, if that will suffice, that's the easiest way to do it. In other words, you have a payment to make to the bank. The people who you're putting in there make a payment to you. They make a payment to you, you make your payment to them. You're charging a higher interest rate than you're paying. So that means their payment is higher than your payment, and so what's left over you put it in HIP National Bank's what I call it. That's right. Hide your wallet. And so as far as the paperwork, it depends on your particular state of what's going to fly there. But as far as the bank being concerned, you don't do anything with your own mortgage. Right, and if I could just add to that, I would just say that absolutely the bank does not care. I mean, they've got their hands full right now. We've taken over 200 deeds and never had an issue with any bank on doing it. Now, can they say something? Yes, they can. Will they? In all likelihood, no. Now, who has the deed is going to depend on what state you're in and the laws and how you sell your property with owner financing.
In some states, you can't use a land contract, and you will have to use something called a wraparound mortgage.
That's what I do here in Texas.
And in those cases, your buyer is going to get legal title. They will have their name on the deed at the courthouse, and that's going to limit you in some things. We could talk for hours about that. But in states where you can use a land contract, it's very favorable to do that. You're going to get to keep legal title, and your buyer's going to get equitable title. So in the cases where you can use a land contract, I would certainly recommend that. I think you would too, wouldn't you, Gerald?
Well, let me kind of say that too. A lot of the things that you say, this is the way that the rules of the game are, or the law, the statutes for this. If you do creative structuring, and you have an attorney who's real sharp to guide you through this, there's so many things that you can get around if you think creatively. And so when you say that it has to be in the courthouse like in my state, no, the owners don't wind up in the courthouse.
Oh, you're talking about your wrap?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you got some tricks out there then.
Yeah. What I'm saying, if you are a creative thinker and you've got an attorney who can back up that what you're doing is kosher.
Well, that's going to be key right there, having an attorney that knows, is on the same page.
The thing that I've said so much is that in real estate, there are very few creative thinkers. Some of the stuff that I've told you here tonight, it's the easiest, as far as I'm concerned, the easiest strategy in real estate investing to get the most bang for your buck, and yet there's most people have never even thought of it. People who've been around never even considered that, or never figured out ways to be more efficient. And I'll get off of that and answer another question.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Vince in Dallas-Fort Worth, that's your area there. Does the person you're owner financing receive the tax benefits as well when purchasing on land contract or contract for deed? And how do you divide the taxes up?
Well, actually, depending on back to how you structure it, if you want to, that you can structure it where that you can maintain it. But in most cases, what I do is if they're owner financing and they have title to the property, then they're paying for the taxes out of their payment. So I give them full credit for all of the taxes and deductions.
Okay. Well, we do the same thing here. Even on a land contract, they get credit for the taxes, and we just get a deduction for the interest that we pay on the mortgage. That's really all that we get.
Yeah.
Okay, Nate has a question. My biggest concern with owner financing is that in the state of Wisconsin, the foreclosure process takes a long time, up to 9 months. Therefore, I've been doing rent-to-own since it's a simple eviction. The question is, when would it be wise for me to use owner financing versus a rent-to-own? Would I look for more money down or a better borrower?
Okay. You said he's from Wisconsin, isn't he?
That's right.
Okay. That is one of the worst states, and I know what he's talking about. It takes forever to get somebody out of there.
He just needs to move, doesn't he?
Yeah. He could do that. Come on down to Texas. Hey?
That's right. Georgia's good, too.
But in that case, kind of like I said in the other person's question, if your state is so strict on that, you may be forced to use only a lease option and not do it as an owner finance. However, this doesn't mean that you can't advertise it as owner finance. And by this, you'll get a higher quality of clientele. But when it comes down to the actual paperwork, now, you understand that in our state that it's over here is blah, blah, blah. And so the way that the paperwork is going to read, and if you've let them up into everything at that point, it'd be no trouble them signing a lease option, and the lease option is what you have as the official paperwork. But you can, present it as owner financing to a person who is going to buy the property and become an official owner.
If they're going to really, if their intents to really buy it, it is owner financing.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, good. Okay, we've got another question here from Christy. She says, I live in an area of the country where single-family residences do not cash flow. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath would cost on average $250,000 and only get $1,000 a month in rent.
Uh-huh.
So how does owner financing beat renting in these situations?
Okay, well, let's back up that question. We can say that why would anybody want to own a house? If the renting is that much cheaper, why don't everybody just rent instead of owning the houses? Well, that's the point is that people do want to own houses, and ownership is very important. Now, if you're looking at just getting in somebody there who will pay rent, then you got a problem. But if you're looking at something where that you have people who want to buy, and they are buyers, and there's not that many houses out there that with their present credit situation that they can own and become home owners, then what we have will float with them. Because if they're looking at what they're going to be paying is the buying a house through conventional sources, then they're going to be paying every bit as much as with you, and the rent has very little to do with it.
Right. You know, when I go out and talk to folks in other areas, especially the high-dollar areas like New York and places like that, what I tell them is, you know, hey, owner finance is the way to go. You can't hold rental property and make a cash flow. You've got to do something else. And there are always going to be people that are buying houses. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
Somebody, you know, may know they can rent a $250,000 house for $1,000 a month, but they don't want to be renters. They want to own it, and they know to own it it's going to cost them $2,000 a month, and they're okay with that.
That's exactly right, and that was the thrust of my answer.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, all right, Gerald, I know you promised me an hour tonight, and I've already added 20% to your work week this week.
Oh.
That makes me feel bad. But, I mean, it's been very informative, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and do this. I know you got a million other things you could be doing, like packing.
Oh, well, let's put it this way. You know, I want everybody to understand that when I've done this, that, you know, I'm not a guru. I have no course to peddle, no agenda or anything. You know, I'm just an old guy who's just passing on some things that he's learning right here, and so take the information for what it's worth.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Since he didn't pay anything, then it must not be worth very much.
Well, you know, sometimes the best advice is free.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to listen to it.
There's a lot of reasons for that, and I really wish that there's people who could understand this and take off and run with it. But I know that this probably won't change many lives, but give somebody something to think about at least.
Well, you and I both know that real estate investing doesn't have to be hard. You know, it can be really simple. And I hope, you know, that's what everybody takes away from this tonight, is that it can be really simple. And you know, let you have the kind of lifestyle that, you know, I mean, I know 8 years ago I only dreamed of doing some of the things I do today. Oh, man,
last summer in Switzerland was nice. Greece was nice the summer before then. You know, we can go on in that, but, you know, there's so much rewards to be had, and you don't want to tie yourself down and doing something other. That's hard work.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and, you know, Gerald's on the board, and he'll, you know, I'm sure be glad to answer any questions we have after this. And if you haven't read his articles that he's got in our article section at sub2deals.com, please do so. And they'll, you know, just reinforce what he's talked about here tonight. But thanks to everybody for coming, and Gerald, thanks for sharing with us.
My pleasure.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub2 Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com or on Facebook at Sub2 Deals. We'll catch you next time.